The laughter started before Clint even finished his sentence. March 1968. Warner Brothers. Executive Conference Room. Burbank. Floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the lot. You could see sound stages from here. Backlot streets. The water tower with the studio logo painted on its side. All of it bathed in that particular California sunlight that made everything look like it was already on film. Clint Eastwood sat at a long mahogany table across from 3 studio executives. He was 37 years old, lean, weathered. He'd just finished filming Where Eagles Dare in Austria. Before that, Hang 'Em High. Before that, the third Leone picture. He was box office now. Bankable. The kind of actor whose name on a poster guaranteed at least a modest return. But that's not why he was here. The head of the table was occupied by Ted Ashley. Mid-50s. Sharp suit. Sharper eyes. He'd been running Warner Brothers for less than a year, but he'd been in the industry for decades. He knew what worked, what sold, what made money, and what burned it. Next to him sat Frank Wells, the studio's president. Early 30s. Ambitious, brilliant. The kind of executive who could recite box office numbers from 10 years ago without checking notes. And beside him was Richard Zanuck, on loan from Fox, consulting on potential projects, Hollywood royalty. His father had practically built the studio system. Richard had grown up in screening rooms and on sets. He'd forgotten more about making movies than most people ever learned. These were serious men, powerful men. Men who decided which dreams became films and which dreams stayed dreams. Clint had come to them with a project, a small thriller he'd optioned. A script called Play Misty for Me. Modest budget. Contemporary setting. Psychological suspense. The story of a disc jockey stalked by an obsessed fan. He'd laid out the basics. Shooting locations. Budget projections. Cast ideas. And then he'd said the thing that made them laugh. I want to direct it. Ted Ashley stopped smiling first. He looked at Clint like he'd just suggested they film the whole thing underwater using trained dolphins. You want to direct, Ashley said. Not a question. A confirmation. Like he needed to hear it again to believe it. Yes. You've never directed anything. No. You've never been to film school. No. You've never worked as an assistant director. Never shadowed anyone. Never even expressed interest in directing until right now in this meeting. Clint stayed quiet. Let Ashley get it out. Mr. Eastwood, Ashley continued, leaning back in his chair. You're a talented actor. A very talented actor. You make us a lot of money. The Dollars films performed beyond anyone's expectations. Hang 'Em High is tracking well. We have high hopes for Where Eagles Dare. He paused. But directing is a completely different skill set. It's not about standing in front of the camera and looking tough. It's about managing hundreds of people, making thousands of decisions, understanding lenses and lighting and editing and sound and performance. It's about vision. I understand that. Do you? Frank Wells leaned forward now. Because what you're asking us to do is hand you $3 million, $1.3 million. Clint corrected. Fine. $1.3 million and trust that you'll figure it out as you go. That's not how this business works. Richard Zanuck hadn't said anything yet. He was just watching Clint, studying him. Finally, he spoke. Why do you want to direct, Mr. Eastwood? It was a genuine question, not hostile. Just curious. Clint thought about it. Because I've been watching directors for 8 years. On Rawhide. On the Leone films. On every picture I've made. And I've seen good ones and bad ones. I've seen directors who know exactly what they want. And directors who are just guessing. And you think you're the first kind? I think I know what I want, and I think I can get it efficiently. Efficiently, Zanuck repeated. He smiled slightly. That's an interesting word choice. Most directors waste time. They shoot coverage they'll never use. They do 15 takes when 3 would work. They lose control of their budgets because they don't plan properly. And you wouldn't? No, because I've been on enough sets to know what works and what doesn't. I know how to shoot for the edit. I know how to work with actors because I am one. And I know how to stay on schedule because I've watched what happens when you don't. Ashley was shaking his head. Mr. Eastwood, with all due respect, every actor thinks they can direct. They watch from the other side of the camera and they think, that doesn't look so hard. But it is hard. It's the hardest job on a film set, I know that. Then you know why we can't let you do this. The room went quiet. Clint looked at each of them in turn. Can I ask you something? Of course, Zanuck said. If I was a studio executive's son, would we be having this conversation? Wells stiffened. Excuse me? If my last name was Warner or Fox or Selznick. If I'd grown up around sets and screening rooms. If I had connections and film school credentials and a family name that meant something. Would you still be telling me I'm not qualified? Ashley's face hardened. That's different. Why? Because those people have been training for this their entire lives. By watching. By being around it. By absorbing it. Clint leaned forward slightly. I've been doing the exact same thing. The only difference is I got paid to do it instead of having it handed to me. The silence that followed was heavy. Uncomfortable. Frank Wells cleared his throat. Mr. Eastwood, I think what we're trying to say is, you're trying to say no without saying no. I get it. Clint stood up, gathered his materials. The script, the budget breakdown, the location scout photos. I appreciate your time, gentlemen. Clint, Zanuck's voice stopped him at the door. For what it's worth, I don't think you're wrong. I just think you're early. Early how? Early in your career. Early in the industry's willingness to take chances on actors who want more. Give it a few years, build more credibility, then come back and we'll talk. Clint nodded. How many years? 5. Maybe 10. That's a long time. Zanuck smiled sadly. That's Hollywood. Clint left the building and sat in his car for 20 minutes. He didn't start the engine, just sat there, hands on the steering wheel, watching people come and go from the executive building. He thought about going home, forgetting the whole thing. Sticking to acting. That's what everyone expected, what everyone wanted. But he couldn't, because he'd been carrying this around for too long. This need to control the whole thing. To not just be part of someone else's vision, but to create his own. He'd felt it on the Leone films. Those were the only times he'd worked with a director who truly understood what he was trying to do, who let him be still, who trusted silence, who knew that less was more. Every other director fought him on it, wanted more emotion, more dialogue, more conventional movie star behavior. And Clint was tired of fighting. He started the car. But he didn't drive home. He drove to Universal. Not to the executive building. To the lot. He talked his way past the gate. His face was known enough now that guards waved him through. And he found Jennings Lang, a producer he'd worked with on a few projects. I need to make a film, Clint said. Lang looked up from his desk. Okay. What film? One I direct. Lang set down his pen. Warner's said no? How'd you know I went to Warner's? Because everyone knows everything in this town within 48 hours. What happened? Clint told him. The meeting. The laughter. The condescension. Lang listened. When Clint finished, Lang was quiet for a long moment. What's your budget? Lang asked. 1.3. Can you do it for less? Probably. Can you do it for under $1 million? Clint thought about it. If I defer my salary and keep the crew small, yeah, probably around $950. Lang nodded. Give me 2 days. For what? To get you fired up. 2 days later, Lang called. Universal will back it. But there are conditions. What condition? You shoot in 25 days. Not 26. Not 30, 25. That's tight. It's what you said you could do. Efficient, right? Right. Second condition. You come in under budget. If you go over, it comes out of your eventual profit participation. Okay. Third condition. No stars. You can't afford them anyway, but I'm making it official. You use unknowns. People who'll work cheap. Fine. And final condition. If this tanks, you never ask to direct again. Not here. Not anywhere. You go back to acting, and you stay there. Clint was quiet. Those are the terms, Lang said. Take them or leave them. I'll take them. Play Misty for Me shot in October 1970. Carmel, California. Clint's hometown. He knew every location, every street, every bar and restaurant and stretch of coastline. He'd cast Jessica Walter as the stalker, relatively unknown, talented, willing to go dark places. He'd kept the crew minimal, 40 people instead of the usual 80. He'd shot in sequence when possible, used natural light, moved fast. Every morning he'd arrive an hour before call time, walk the locations, block out the shots in his head. By the time the crew showed up, he knew exactly what he wanted. No wasted takes, no indecision, no getting lost in coverage. They finished in 24 days, came in at $950,000, exactly on budget. The film premiered in November 1971. Critics were skeptical. Actor-turned-director usually meant vanity project, usually meant disaster. But the reviews came in positive. Not glowing, but solid. Assured debut. Surprisingly controlled. Eastwood shows genuine talent behind the camera. More importantly, it made money. Not huge money. But it cost less than $1 million and grossed over $10 million domestic. That was a win by anyone's measure. Clint didn't gloat. Didn't call Warner Brothers. Didn't send a copy of the reviews to Ted Ashley's desk with a note saying, "I told you so." He just started preparing his next film. Over the next 5 years, he directed 4 more movies, each one bigger than the last, each one more ambitious. High Plains Drifter in 1973. A supernatural western that was darker and stranger than anything American audiences had seen. The Outlaw Josie Wales in 1976. An epic about a Confederate soldier turned outlaw. 3 hours long. Personal. Violent. Poetic. By 1973, Clint Eastwood was no longer just an actor who directed. He was a director who happened to act in his own films. And in March 1973, exactly 5 years after the Warner Brothers meeting, something happened that shocked Hollywood. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences announced the nominees for Best Picture. And there, among the usual prestige films and studio darlings, was a small western directed by and starring Clint Eastwood. It didn't win, but it was nominated. And that nomination meant something. It meant that the industry, the same industry that had laughed at him 5 years earlier, now had to take him seriously. Ted Ashley saw the nomination announcement in Variety. He was having breakfast at the Polo Lounge when he read it. He set down the paper and stared at nothing for a long time. Frank Wells was with him. "You okay?" "I made a mistake," Ashley said. "What mistake?" "Eastwood. 5 years ago. I laughed at him." Wells remembered. "He wasn't ready." "Yes, he was. We just didn't want to see it." "Why not?" Ashley thought about that. "Because actors aren't supposed to direct. Because that's not how it works. Because if we let one do it, they'll all want to do it. And then we lose control." "You think we've lost control?" Ashley gestured at the paper. "I think control was always an illusion. The talented ones don't need our permission. They just need our money. And if we won't give it to them, they'll find someone who will." He paused. Eastwood didn't need us. He just needed someone to believe in him. And we weren't willing to be that someone. A week later, Ashley's secretary told him Clint Eastwood was on the line. Ashley picked up. "Clint, congratulations on the nomination. Thank you. I wanted to apologize for that meeting 5 years ago. No need." "Yes, there is. I was dismissive. I was wrong." Clint was quiet for a moment. "You weren't wrong, Mr. Ashley. You were protecting your investment. That's your job. Still, I should have seen what you were capable of. You saw what I'd done up to that point, which was act. You had no reason to believe I could direct, except that you told me you could. Lots of people say lots of things. You can't believe everyone." Ashley smiled. "That's very gracious of you. I'm not being gracious. I'm being practical. If you'd said yes 5 years ago, I might have failed. I wasn't as ready as I thought I was. I needed those 5 years. I needed to work with other directors. To learn. To make mistakes on smaller projects before I made them on something that mattered. So you're saying we did you a favor? I'm saying everything happened the way it needed to happen." Ashley was quiet for a long moment. "Would you ever consider directing something for Warner Brothers?" "Maybe." "What did you have in mind?" "Nothing specific. But I'd like to be in business with you. Properly this time. I'll think about it. That's all I ask." They didn't work together for another 5 years, but in 1978, Warner Brothers distributed Every Which Way But Loose, directed by James Fargo, but produced by Clint's company, Malpaso. It became the second highest grossing film of 1978, and after that, Warner Brothers and Clint Eastwood became partners. Real partners, for decades. But it was Unforgiven in 1992 that proved everything. Clint directed it, produced it, starred in it. Warner Brothers distributed it. It won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. Clint stood on that stage holding the Oscar for directing, and he thought about the conference room, about the laughter, about being told he was talented but not qualified, about being told to wait 5 years, maybe 10. He'd waited 5 years. And then he'd spent the next 24 making films his way, on his terms, with his vision. And now he was holding the industry's highest honor. In his speech, he didn't mention the Warner Brothers meeting, didn't call out anyone by name, just thanked his cast and crew, thanked his family, said he was grateful. But later in the press room, someone asked him about the early years, about trying to become a director when the industry didn't want him to. "What would you say to young filmmakers who are being told no?" the reporter asked. Clint thought about it. "I'd say that no is just information. It's not a verdict. It's one person's opinion at one moment in time. But how do you know when to listen to the no and when to ignore it? You don't. Not really. You just decide whether you're willing to live with the regret of not trying. If you can live with that regret, then listen to the no. But if you can't, if the need to make something is stronger than the fear of failing, then you find another way. Another door, another studio, another country. Whatever it takes. And if all the doors are closed," Clint smiled, "then you build your own door. You make the film anyway. You shoot it for nothing with your friends. You max out credit cards. You do whatever it takes to prove you can do it. Because once you've proven it, once there's evidence, the industry has to pay attention." Is that what you did? That's exactly what I did. Richard Zanuck, who'd been in that meeting 24 years earlier, was also in the press room. He was older now, grayer, but he was smiling. After the questions died down, he approached Clint. "I told you to wait 5 years," Zanuck said. "You did. I should have told you to start immediately." Clint shook his hand. "If you had, I might have listened, and I might have failed." "You don't believe that." "I do. I needed to be told no. I needed to have something to prove. If it had been easy, I wouldn't have worked as hard." Zanuck thought about that. "So you're saying we helped you by rejecting you?" "I'm saying rejection clarifies things. It shows you how badly you want something. And if you still want it after being told you can't have it, if you want it enough to find another way, then you probably deserve it." That's a generous interpretation. It's the only interpretation that lets me sleep at night. They both laughed. Ted Ashley had died in 1997, 5 years earlier. But before he died, he'd written Clint a letter. Clint didn't open it until after the funeral. The letter was short, 1 page, handwritten. It said, "Dear Clint, I've spent 40 years in this business making decisions about who gets to make movies and who doesn't. I've been right more often than I've been wrong, which is why I lasted as long as I did. But my biggest mistake was underestimating you. Not because you proved me wrong, though you did, but because I didn't see that the qualities that make you a great actor are the same qualities that make you a great director. Economy, restraint, confidence. You were always a director. I just couldn't see it because I was looking for something else, something louder, something more conventional. Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for proving that talent doesn't need permission. It just needs opportunity. And thank you for showing me that sometimes the best thing an executive can do is get out of the way." With respect and admiration, Ted. Clint kept that letter. Still has it. He doesn't talk about it much, but people who've seen it say it's framed in his office, right next to his Oscars. A reminder, not of the no, but of what the no made possible. Because if Ted Ashley had said yes in 1968, Clint would have made one film. Maybe it would have been good. Maybe it would have failed. But because Ashley said no, Clint spent 5 years learning, preparing, building. And when he finally got his chance, he was ready. Not just to make a film, but to make 40 of them, and to change the industry in the process. The laughter in that conference room lasted maybe 10 seconds. The career it ignited lasted 5 decades. And that's the thing about being told you can't do something. Sometimes it's the truth. And sometimes it's just the beginning.